The tape is rolling. Studio A at Steeltown Records, Gary, Indiana. 8-year-old Michael Jackson stands on an apple crate behind a microphone that's still too tall for him. His brothers watch from the other side of the glass. The engineer, Ben Brown, has his finger on the record button, but he hasn't pressed it yet. They've been here for 3 hours. Michael has sung the same verse 14 times. 14 takes. Each one technically perfect. Each one completely wrong. Ben keeps shaking his head, keeps saying one more time, keeps looking less convinced that this session will produce anything usable. Michael's hands are shaking. His throat hurts. His eyes sting from trying not to cry. Joe Jackson sits in the corner of the control room, arms crossed, jaw tight as a fist. They paid $50 for the session. $50 that was supposed to buy groceries for a week. $50 that Catherine doesn't know they spent because if she did, she'd have stopped them. She's home right now with the younger children, making dinner out of whatever's left in the cupboards, not knowing that their future is being decided in a converted warehouse on the bad side of Gary. One more take. That's all they have left. The tape costs money. Studio time costs money. Everything costs money they don't have. Ben presses the intercom button. Michael, one more time. But this time, stop trying to sing it perfect. Just feel it. Okay. Michael nods, closes his eyes, takes a breath, and does something no one in that room expects. He stops being an 8-year-old trying to sound like an adult and becomes Michael Jackson. February 12, 1967, 3 months before the session. The Jackson 5 weren't even called the Jackson 5 yet. They were just 5 brothers who sang at talent shows. Michael was 8 years old and barely 4 feet tall. When they performed at the local VFW hall or the community center talent night, people clapped, not because they were great, because they were cute. "Oh, look at the tiny one," someone would say, pointing at Michael. "Isn't that precious?" Precious, not incredible, not talented. Precious, like a puppy doing a trick. Michael hated that word, but what he hated more was seeing his father's face after those shows. Joe Jackson worked the night shift at Inland Steel, came home with his back screaming and his hands covered in burns from the furnaces, slept 4 hours, woke up, drove the boys to school, rehearsed with them after, drove them to shows, did it all over again. And for what? $5 a show if they were lucky, 10 if the venue was feeling generous. It wasn't enough, not even close to enough. The Jacksons lived in a 2-bedroom house on Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. 5 boys, 2 girls, 2 parents. Not enough beds, not enough space, not enough money, ever. Catherine cleaned houses for white families in the suburbs. The families were nice enough, but they paid her less than they'd pay a white woman for the same work. Everyone knew it. No one said it. That's just how things were in 1967. But Joe Jackson had a plan. He'd heard about Steeltown Records, a small independent label right there in Gary, run by 2 guys named Gordon Keith and Ben Brown. They weren't Motown. They weren't even close. But they were real. They had recording equipment. They pressed actual vinyl records. And if the Jackson brothers could just get a record made, a real record, maybe someone would take them seriously. The phone call that changed everything came in November 1966. Joe had been calling Steeltown for months. Same answer every time. "We don't record children. Sorry." But Gordon Keith saw them perform at a club in Hammond one Friday night, watched 8-year-old Michael sing Tobacco Road, and something made him pause. Not the whole performance. Just something in the kid's voice. Something that didn't belong in an 8-year-old throat. 2 weeks later, the phone rang. Catherine answered. "Mrs. Jackson? This is Gordon Keith from Steeltown Records. Is your husband available?" Joe took the phone. Listened. His expression didn't change, but Catherine saw his hand tighten on the receiver. "Yes, sir. We can do that. Thank you. Thank you so much." He hung up, looked at Catherine. "They're giving us 4 hours of studio time. $50. If they like what they hear, they'll press a single." Catherine's face went pale. $50? It's an investment. "Joe, that's grocery for a week. That's the gas bill. It's our shot, Joe said. How many times have we heard, your boys are talented, and then nothing happens? This is real, Catherine. Real studio. Real record. Real chance. Catherine looked at her husband, saw the desperation and the dream fighting for space in his eyes. When February gives us 3 months to prepare. The next 3 months were brutal. Practice every single day after school. 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. No exceptions. No complaints. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Michael. Harmonies. Timing. Stage presence. Over and over until their voices cracked and their fingers bled from the guitar strings. Joe wasn't a father during those sessions. He was a drill sergeant. Again. Tighter harmony on the bridge. Michael, more so. Don't just sing the words. Mean them. But how do you mean words you don't understand? Michael was 8. What did he know about heartbreak? About loss? About the things the songs were about? Joe played him records. James Brown, Jackie Wilson, Sam Cooke. Listen to how they sing it. Feel what they're feeling. Then make it yours. Michael would lie in bed at night, next to Marlon, staring at the ceiling. What if I mess up? He'd whisper. What if I can't do it? Marlon was 9. You won't mess up. You never do when it matters. How do you know? Because you're Michael, Marlon said simply. Like that explained everything. They chose Big Boy for the session, an up-tempo R&B number that required perfect harmonies and emotional maturity way beyond their years. They practiced it 500 times, maybe more, until they could sing it in their sleep, until every note was muscle memory. If you are enjoying this story, please subscribe to support the channel. February 12, 1967. The day arrived. 4:30 a.m. The boys climbed into Joe's van, matching outfits on hangers. Rehearsal tapes, even though they'd memorized every word. Catherine made breakfast in the dark. Eggs, toast, orange juice. She hugged Michael extra long. Mama, you're squeezing too tight, he said. I know, baby. Her voice cracked. I know. Steeltown Records wasn't impressive. A converted warehouse in the industrial part of Gary. Equipment that looked like it belonged in a museum. Soundproofing made of egg cartons and carpet scraps. The sign outside was hand-painted. This wasn't Motown. This wasn't even close. But to the Jackson brothers, walking through that door felt like entering a cathedral. Ben Brown was waiting. White guy, mid-30s. Cigarette hanging from his mouth. Skeptical eyes that had seen 1,000 local acts come and go. You the Jackson kids? Yes, sir, Joe said. I'm Ben Brown. I'll be engineering your session. Let's get one thing straight. You got 4 hours. That's it. We start at 9 a.m. We end at 1 p.m. Time is money, and your money buys 4 hours. Understood. Understood. Ben looked at the 5 boys. The oldest was maybe 13. The youngest looked like he should be in 2nd grade. All right, let's see what you've got. The first take was pure nervous energy. They set up Jackie on tambourine, Tito on guitar, Jermaine on bass, Marlon on congas, Michael on lead vocals, standing on an apple crate because he couldn't reach the microphone otherwise. Ben's voice crackled through the intercom. When I point, you start. When I raise my hand, you stop. Clear. Yes, sir. Okay, let's roll tape. Take 1. Jackie counted them in. 1, 2, 3, 4. The music started. Tight. Professional. Way better than Ben expected. And then Michael opened his mouth. His voice was clear. Pitch perfect. Technically flawless. Ben let them get through 16 bars. Then stopped the tape. That was good, Ben said. The brothers smiled. But good doesn't get you on the radio. Good is forgettable. I need great. Again. The smiles faded. Takes 2 through 5 were technical adjustments. Michael, closer to the mic. Jackie, your tambourine is off time in the 2nd verse. Tito, guitar's too loud. Each time they fixed a problem. Each time something else was wrong. Take 6. Take 7. Take 8. Ben stopped the tape after the bridge. You're singing it like you memorized it. he said through the intercom. I can't hear you thinking about the words. Stop thinking. Feel it. Michael didn't understand. He was doing everything right. Hitting every note. Perfect timing. What else did Ben want? In the control room, Joe sat rigid, watching, not speaking. His jaw got tighter with each failed take. Take 9. Take 10. Michael's voice cracked slightly on the bridge. He'd been singing for 2 hours straight. His throat was dry. Ben stopped the tape. Water break. 5 minutes. Michael drank from a paper cup, hands trembling. He was failing. $50. Groceries for a week. His mother's worried face this morning. His father's silence in the corner. All of it crashing down because he couldn't figure out what Ben wanted. 11:45. 3 hours in. 1 hour left. They hadn't completed a single usable take. Ben Brown came out of the control room, sat on a stool in front of Michael. The 8-year-old looked up at him with eyes that were trying very hard not to cry. Kid, can I be honest with you? Michael nodded. You've got talent. Real talent. Your pitch is perfect. Your timing is excellent. Technically, you're doing everything right. Then why isn't it working? Because you're singing like you're trying to impress me, Ben said. I don't need impressive. I need real. Right now, you sound like a really talented 8-year-old pretending to be James Brown. I need you to sound like Michael Jackson, whoever that is. Michael stared at him. I don't understand. Ben sighed, looked at Joe through the glass. Joe nodded stiffly. Forget the song for a second, Ben said. Just talk to me. Why do you sing? Because my dad wants us to. No. Why do you sing? When no one's making you. When it's just you. Why? Michael thought about it. Really thought. Because it feels good. Because when I'm singing, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just there, in the music. It's the only time everything makes sense. Okay, Ben said. So do that. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to sound like someone else. Just be an 8-year-old kid who loves music. That's all I want. Can you do that? Michael nodded slowly. I think so. All right, one more take. Last one. Make it count. Take 15. 11:52 a.m. Michael stood on his apple crate. Ben rolled tape. Jackie counted them in. But this time, Michael closed his eyes. And something shifted. He stopped thinking about his father watching. Stopped thinking about the $50. Stopped thinking about sounding professional or adult or impressive. He thought about his mother, working 3 jobs so they could eat. His father's burned hands from the steel mill. His brothers believing in him. The tiny house where they all shared rooms and dreams. The feeling he got when music played and nothing else mattered. And when he opened his mouth, the voice that came out was different. Not technically different. Emotionally different. It wasn't perfect. It was real. The voice shouldn't have existed. 8-year-old vocal cords shouldn't be able to produce that kind of emotional depth, that kind of texture, that kind of soul. But it was happening. Right there. In real time. In the control room. Ben Brown's hand hovered over the stop button. He didn't press it. Gordon Keith, who'd been doing paperwork in his office, heard something through the wall, walked into the control room, stood behind Ben, stared at the 8-year-old on the other side of the glass. Is that? Yeah, Ben whispered. That's him. Michael hit the bridge, the part where his voice had been cracking all day. This time it didn't crack. It soared, not showing off, just fully, completely committed to the emotion. His brothers came in with harmonies that locked like pieces of machine. Tito's guitar filled exactly the right spaces. Everything clicked. Michael sang the final chorus, gave it everything he had left. The last note rang out, hung in the air. Silence. Ben Brown pressed the intercom button. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. That's the one. Michael opened his eyes. Really? Kid, I've been engineering records for 15 years. That's the best vocal I've ever recorded. Period. Doesn't matter that you're 8. That was... He trailed off. Couldn't find the words. Gordon Keith leaned into the microphone. Mr. Jackson, we're pressing this record. I don't know if radio will play it. I don't know if anyone will buy it. But that performance deserves to exist. Joe Jackson stood up. For the first time all day, he smiled. Small smile. The kind that says I was right. I knew I was right. 1:15 p.m. The session ended. 14 failed takes. One impossible masterpiece. Ben burned the final take onto acetate. The brothers packed up their instruments, still buzzing with adrenaline and relief. Michael, Ben said as they were leaving, I don't know what your future holds, but don't let anyone tell you you're too young or too small. What you did in there, that's rare. Protect it. In the van heading home, the brothers were loud, excited, talking over each other. Michael sat quietly in the back, looking out the window at Gary passing by. You okay? Jackie asked. I was so scared, Michael admitted. I thought I was going to ruin everything. But you didn't. I almost did. For 3 hours, I almost did. Yeah, Jackie said. But when it mattered, you figured it out. That's what counts. March 1967. Big Boy Back with You've Changed was released. 500 copies pressed on Steeltown Records. Local distribution only. The record made its way to WGRY, the Gary radio station. DJ Bobby Day played it on his afternoon show. The phone lines exploded. Who is that singing? The Jackson 5. Local kids. Lead singer's 8 years old. No way. That can't be a kid. But it was. Within 6 weeks, all 500 copies sold out. Steeltown pressed 500 more. Those sold out too. The Jackson 5 started getting booked at bigger venues, better clubs. People came specifically to see if the 8-year-old really sounded like that in person. He did. Within 6 months, Bobby Taylor of Vancouver saw them at a club in Chicago, told Barry Gordy at Motown. I found something special that led to the Motown audition in July 1968, which led to I Want You Back, which led to superstardom, which led to everything. Ben Brown sits for an interview with a music journalist. You engineered Michael Jackson's first professional recording. What do you remember? Ben lights a cigarette. Thinks. I remember thinking we were wasting time and money. I remember this tiny kid standing on an apple crate and thinking, this is never going to work. And then I remember the exact moment he stopped trying and started being. Take 15, a big boy. That was the moment Michael Jackson became Michael Jackson. I watched it happen. Watched an 8-year-old figure out who he was in real time. That doesn't happen. You don't witness that. But I did. Do you still have the original tape? Hell yes, I have it. Locked in a safe. That tape is history. That's the moment the greatest entertainer who ever lived discovered his voice. Not his singing voice. His real voice. The thing that made him him. What did it sound like? Ben thinks for a long moment. It sounded impossible. That's the only word. Impossible. February 12, 1967. 4 hours in a converted warehouse in Gary, Indiana. $50 that should have bought groceries. 14 failed takes and one that changed everything. They didn't know it then, but everyone in that studio that day was witnessing the birth of something unprecedented. Not because an 8-year-old could sing. Lots of kids can sing. But because an 8-year-old figured out how to stop performing and start revealing. Ben Brown was right. That performance deserved to exist in the world. It deserved to be heard. 16 years later, Michael Jackson would moonwalk his way into immortality. 25 years later, he'd be the biggest star on the planet. But it all started in that moment. Take 15. When a scared kid on an apple crate closed his eyes and stopped trying to be impressive and just decided to be true. History wasn't made because Michael Jackson was perfect at 8 years old. History was made because he learned to be real. And that lesson, learned in 3 brutal hours in a Gary warehouse, shaped everything that came after. The voice, the artistry, the legend, all of it traced back to that single moment. When the tape rolled, when the music played, when an 8-year-old boy became himself. And changed music forever. If you like this story, please subscribe to support this channel.